is politically and socially destructive. It tears everything apart. And it doesn't just affect slaves. It affects free people as well. And I'd like to quote to you at some length a passage from a speech by Frederick Douglass called The Decision of the Hour. The speech is from June of 1861, right at the very outbreak of the war. He says, "Slavery, like all other gross and powerful forms of wrong, which appeal directly to human pride and selfishness, when once admitted into the framework of society, has the ability and tendency to beget a character in the whole network of society surrounding it favorable to its continuance. The very law of its existence is growth and dominion. Natural and harmonious relations easily repose in their own rectitude, while all such as are false and unnatural are conscious of their own weakness and must seek strength from without. Hence the explanation of the uneasy, restless, eager anxiety of slaveholders. Our history shows that from the formation of this government until the attempt now making to break it up, this class of men have been constantly pushing schemes for the safety and supremacy of the slave system. They have had marvelous success. They have completely destroyed freedom in the slave states and were doing their best to accomplish the same in the free states." He says, freedom of speech, of the press, of education, of labor, all kinds of freedom are felt to be a standing menace to slavery. Hence, the friends of slavery are bound by the necessity of their system to do just what the history of this country shows they have done. That is, to seek to subvert all liberty and to pervert all the safeguards of human rights. They could not do otherwise. It was the controlling law of their situation. Now, that's really remarkable, because what he's telling us is that slavery is not only destructive of the freedom of slaves, which should be obvious, it's also destructive of the freedom of the free. Slavery caused the antebellum South to become, in many respects, the world's first modern police state. Freedom of speech was deprived. If you said anti-slavery things, if you did not profess the faith, you took your life in your hands, and people were routinely threatened. Southern congressmen routinely threatened their northern counterparts with violence and death if they did not bend the knee to the slave power. There was no freedom of the press. Books, newspapers that were critical of slavery were suppressed, burned, prevented from entering the South at all. There was no protection against warrantless searches. Slave codes in the various states stipulated that if a slave patrol felt the need to search your home, your land, your slave cabins, your outbuildings, they did not need a warrant. They could just enter in and search anything they wanted to. Mail was seized, opened, and inspected for abolitionist thoughts and suppressed if it was found to contain them. On the procedural side, everything in this society was built around the planters. Poor whites in slave society were little better off than slaves. Essentially disenfranchised, landless, poor, uneducated. They could vote, technically, but all that meant was that they could choose between plantation aristocrats to hold elected office, because the elected official class were all from the plantation class, whether they were plantation owners or second sons or whatever the case may be. The solution, obviously, for the opponents of slavery was to end slavery. Ending slavery would recognize and guarantee the natural rights of all, but no more. If Frederick Douglass, in his 1865 speech, What the Black Man Wants, said, "What I ask for the Negro is not benevolence, nor pity, nor sympathy, but simply justice." The American people have always been very anxious to know what they shall do with us. Douglass says, "Do nothing with us. Your doing has already played the mischief with us. Do nothing with us." In other words, free us. Guarantee to us our natural rights. And then get out of our way. Stop doing. Every time you treat us differently, it hurts us. Just treat us like everybody else, as human beings and citizens with natural and civil rights. And this meant for Douglass returning to the founding. He believed that the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence provided the proper framework for the establishment of liberty and justice for the slaves of this country.